Welcome everybody to the Indie Scientology podcast. I'm your host Andy Nolch, and it's nice to be here listening to a song by Strauss. This is a podcast that has everything to do with Scientology. Yes, that interesting religion you might have heard about. If you like this podcast, make sure you subscribe to it. If you don't know what Scientology is, then I recommend listening to the first few episodes of this podcast, where there's no guest interviews, but I just explain what Scientology is, because it is quite a hard topic to understand. You literally can't understand it in 5 minutes. You can't explain it in 5 minutes. It takes probably 3 hours to sit someone down and actually explain to them what Scientology is. Today's podcast is going to be a guest interview with Paul Colbourne, who is a Scientology and religious skeptic. It's going to be very interesting. Oh, it's now time to go down that rabbit hole into the world of Scientology. Up is up, up is down, up is up. Left is right down. What? That's how confusing it is. What you thought wasn't possible is possible. Welcome to the podcast. Today's episode, as I said, is with Paul Colbourne. But before that, we got some Scientology news. Coming up on the 21st of January, Saturday the 21st of January, the opening of the Auckland New Ideal Org is happening. Which sounds alright, I guess. That's, I guess, all I have to say about that. It's, I used to be part of the Melbourne church, and this is something that's been in the pipeworks for a long time. They really pushed this one, and last thing I heard was they've already got like 200 staff, which is really, really impressive. You know. How long that staff lasts for is another story. After 6 months and after a year, a lot of them would have dropped away. But if they do things, and this is a really big thing the church needs to do, if they change the schedule to be not so intense, a lot more people will be able to stay on staff for long term. Now, also in the news is just this A&E show that Leah Remini has been making. That's currently on at the moment, I think, or was on about a month ago. This podcast is actually a bit late, to be honest. I'm on my summer Christmas break. It's summer in Australia where I am. But yeah, she's been making this show, interviewing ex-Scientologists, and it's usually ex-church members. And I can predict what a lot of the interviews will be like. The church, they took my money, and then my daughter, she never called me again. That's basically what I can predict a lot of the interviews are going to be like. No, I'm sure they're going to have good information in them. I've got to say my personal opinion. Sorry if I offend anyone. But it's just, you just know what these interviews and this show is going to be like. It's going to be Leah sitting on a chair, leaning in, looking across at the person with a little bit of a teary eye going, I understand, the church was bad. But, you know, it's still informative and it's still talking about Scientology, which is good. But I think that, you know, it all depends on if they can get some really, really interesting people to interview, some real big shots, you know, someone like David Mayo. Ooh, wouldn't he be interesting to interview? Anyway, I just, you know, there's a lot of negative information about Scientology and the church and that, and, you know, I'm not involved with the church, and that's why this is the Indie Scientology podcast, and, you know, I think we should focus on the positive more than anything. Now, here, would you like to hear a win of the week? All right. This win is this because this podcast is out of date. This actually isn't the win of this week. But anyway, this is called Original OT for Success, and it's written by someone who isn't an English speaking sort of person, so it's worded a bit wrongly, but I'll read it out anyway. So, Original OT for Success. Separation is the key here. I seem to no longer with the group any longer. I am alone, but a good alone, being ecstatic. So thank you, Pat, you diamond, and see you soon, Ron. I will reaching to the stars again very soon. Huge smiley face. Good luck, everyone. Hope to see you there too. Darren May. Cool. Good win, Darren. And I know exactly what you're talking about. When I get case gain as well, a big thing in me was that fear tone within me, this sort of concern of worried about what the group thinks and just continually being fearful and sort of worried. Actually, within the past 6 months, has actually gone out of me. Like really been torn out of me. And it's great to not feel as scared, and you basically stop being a slave almost. It's you just don't care what people think, because just caring what people think and having this fear tone in your case, having it really makes you conform. It really makes you, do what others do and do what's accepted, and be really worried about what people think. And I found that getting that ripped out of me was great, because it's like you're free to do what you want to do, and you're no longer as much a part of the group, and I thought it was fantastic. But it made me, when I had this win, I was able to stand back and really look at society and go, wow, now I get why people act so aberrated, and why people are so easily controlled. It's because they've got this fear tone in them, that they're scared to be different, And it's exactly what SPs want, is us to have that fear in us, because the fear in us is like our own, it controls us. It keeps us well behaved. It's like, let's say you got a free OT being, and you can put a policeman next to him all the time saying, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. And that'll control the OT, right? But instead of putting a policeman there permanently, or maybe, it's an implant or something, you give them an implant, or you give them something that really punches fear tone into them as a being. It goes, boom. If you toe out a line, you're going to get scared, and you're going to stop towing out a line. So you pump this into this OT being, and then from there on, you don't need to, have a policeman around them all the time, or even a police state. They walk around controlling themselves because they're scared. Oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm scared. Oh, I'm not going to walk down that alleyway. I'm scared. Oh, I'm not going to try Scientology. I'm scared. And then you take that being and you rip that out of them, and they're like, whoa, this is interesting. And it's like you have to kind of have this win yourself until you can really understand it, And that's the thing with Scientology. It's like going clear or OT or whatever. These are hard things to explain, You can't know what jet skiing's like until you actually tried it, basically. So that's why, because I remember David Miscavige in 1992 did some interview with Ted Koppel, and Ted Koppel said, he said to David Miscavige, he goes, why would I do Scientology or whatever? Why should I try Scientology? I've got a good job, a happy family, and I can communicate really well. Why should I do Scientology? And what I'm talking about here in this win is exactly why he should do Scientology, because until he does Scientology and changes, he won't know that he doesn't even communicate that good. Do you know what I mean? Like, he does communicate good, but he can communicate a whole lot better until he gets that win. Then he'll be like, whoa, I'm much, much better at communicating, you know? And the fear tone thing, for example, until he gets the fear tone ripped out of him, then he'll be like, whoa, I really had fear tone. So that's what's cool about Scientology is if you're doing it and you're getting some wins, you're going to get wins that you couldn't even predict. And that's pretty damn exciting. And I can't wait to do the O2 levels. All right, here's a quote by L. Ron Hubbard. All of your work is motivated by the future, not motivated by the past. You want to eat tomorrow, so you work today. The cause is eat tomorrow, and the effect is work today. This universe has an interesting law. It says if you can make a cause in the present, you cannot affect or make an effect out of the Roman Empire, because that was 2,000 years ago. The day you change the Roman Empire in the past by making a cause in the future, you're doing all right. That would be a reversal of the whole proceedings. That's from the PDCs on the 2nd of December 1952. And it's a funky quote. And I've had some experiences with that phenomenon of literally postulating and then suddenly something in the past changed. Sorry, not suddenly, but postulating and probably forgetting about it, then some time passed and then being like, whoa, things in the past that I thought were bad were actually pretty good. And I don't know, I just have reality on what he's talking about here, because I know someone who's listened to this who might not be a Scientologist would read this quote and go, what the hell does that mean? Like, you have a wish and then suddenly the Roman Empire becomes a chicken empire. What the hell? You can't, and you look up in history books and it says the chicken empire. That's just not possible. Well, I've had experience with this, but not with something as epic as that, like the actual name changes of the Roman Empire, but like something that it was something involving some evil person, right, from the past, and then make the postulate, and suddenly, after time goes by, they are like, whoa, that person wasn't as bad as what I thought, and experiences that I had in the past are like, get flipped on their head, and suddenly like, oh, maybe that experience was a good experience to have. Like maybe that postulate I had was so powerful that suddenly made that experience in the past actually a good experience. So you can change your thinking, crack open your mind, change your thinking, right? If let's say you're like some sort of rape victim, or you've had a really bad upbringing, change your thinking and let's start cracking open that past and flipping it so that everything in your past is just awesome and has always been awesome. It's kind of cool, because I don't know about you, but I want to live in a world. I'm postulating that I'm living in a world where everything is pretty damn good. Anyway, this is how you start. This is all about the PDCs. All about creating and postulating your own future. It's really interesting. All right, it's now time for the guest interview. I recorded with Paul Colbourne, who is a religious skeptic, and he's a bit anti-Scientology, and I wanted to talk to him because sometimes a Scientologist and a skeptic will clash heads and have like a little mini argument, and they never really get resolved, and they never really sit down and actually go, let's discuss this. Usually someone gets upset and it ends, and it's silly. So this interview was a chance for me and him to sit down and go, let's really sit down and discuss this about our totally different ideas of Scientology in the world. Basically, let's go into this and see why we have totally different ideas. And I I think I did go into it wanting him to see if I could change him a little bit into being a Scientologist. But I really, when it comes to a skeptic, I don't really have the hope that they're ever really going to become a Scientologist. I'm not really that interested in it. When this whole podcast and whenever I talk about Scientology, it's more for like average Joe sort of. Like it's more for someone who's maybe looking for help, interested in improving themselves, and then offering them a solution. I'm not looking to change like Richard Dawkins because I just know it's too hard, and that's basically it. I just know it's too hard. So when it comes to Paul Colbourne and like Richard Dawkins or something, it's just like I'm not going to really waste my time trying to change them. And also it's like I kind of like the idea of leaving things up to like the universe or God and not me having to change everyone and me having to control the whole universe like in a manic David Miscavige style, like I'm turned 40, I'm making things happen all the time. Like just sometimes just being a bit of like a Buddhist and being a bit like, yeah, you know, things just happen the way they are. So a bit of that sort of attitude. Anyway, so let's have a listen to this interview with the Scientology skeptic. Okay, it's now time for today's guest on the podcast, and it's an interview with Paul Colbourne, who is a skeptic, and he's not much of a fan with Scientology. So are you there, Paul?
I am. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's sort of my day sort of just started, and it's summertime now, so the weather's nice and warm. You'll be really jealous because you're in Canada, aren't you?
Actually, no, I'm in South America right now, so
Oh,
I'm enjoying the sunny weather as well.
wow! But
I'm teaching I'm teaching English in Colombia,
yeah, okay, but and you're from Canada, are you?
but I am from Canada. Yes.
Yeah. Wow. And why like sort of why am I interviewing you? Like why do you have any sort of connection with Scientology?
Well, like many people around the world, I seen Tom Cruise jump on the couch. I seen the growth of Anonymous. Anonymous? Yes,
Yeah.
Anonymous. Yes,
Yeah.
and Scientology was always sort of like, as far as I'm concerned, just sort of a fringe religion that I didn't know anything about. So I knew Tom Cruise and John Travolta and Christy Alley and all these people were involved, but I didn't know anything about it. But I did know that there was a lot of they were very, very litigious in their attempt to stop any sort of bad press,
Yeah.
uh, uh, which I found a little bit extreme. I grew up on the east coast of Canada, and I lived through the whole Catholic Church debacle and the Christian Brothers, and those who believe that it happened, those who believe that it didn't.
Are you talking about
And
the pedophilia stuff?
yeah, the abuse of children. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So I just sort of became interested because it was quite an interesting topic that this religion that was started in the 1950s by a science fiction writer had grabbed hold of so many people and actually pulled them in. And my main question was, well, we're living in the 20th century. Uh, I thought religion was something that sort of came out of the Dark Ages. We're in a time of science. We're in a time of reason, and we're in a time of needing evidence to believe. So I just found it very interesting that there could be actually a new religion being developed. Uh,
And what's really
and in some of my
interesting,
readings, I found.
sorry, I just want to say, just what you're saying just then, it's really interesting because there would be a lot of people who would have the similar thoughts to that you have at the moment or used to have. Like, I imagine a lot of people agree with you. Like, when they saw Tom Cruise and that and Scientology, when it was had all that attention 10 years ago, I can just imagine a lot of people would have been thinking what you were thinking.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that was it. It wasn't so much that I want to know what Tom Cruise is doing. My interest then became like in more of in a general thing. How can anybody develop a new religion? I mean, what was this all about? Was there a new slant on God? Was it a new sect? Was it that guy from
The Mormons.
there's a guy from Australia who says he's AJ Miller, I think,
Yeah.
is the newest who believes that they're God or
The,
believes that they're Jesus.
the Australian
Uh,
Jesus.
yeah, exactly. Well, actually, there's one in Russia as well that looks a little bit more like the paintings of Christ. Uh, he's in Serbia, actually. So I'm not sure who's the real Jesus. I don't know if you ever seen The Life of Brian, but there was like, I'm Jesus, and so is my wife. Um,
Yeah.
but no, getting back to Scientology, I just didn't understand how someone could form a new religion. And it turns out that it was actually a self-help book first, Dianetics, which was a new slant on basically psychoanalysis, as far as I can tell. Talk about something over and over again till it no longer affects you. Which, if anything, is Skinnerian biology. I forget the doctor's name, Skinner, who came up with the idea of behavioral psychology. And to me, it seemed not much different than behavioral psychology. You talk about something enough, eventually it no longer affects you the same.
Yeah.
The famous Skinnerian, if you zap two rabbits in a Skinnerian box or whatever with electricity, eventually they'll fight each other because they learn to associate the zapping with pain, and so then they attack each other anyway, something like that. I remember from first year psychology in university. But yeah, it didn't seem any different than any other self-help book that was going around. That you just talk about something and eventually it'll go away. I mean, it's like anything. I have a problem. I talk to my sister or I talk to my best friend, and they have a new slant on it, and eventually you feel better. Then all of a sudden, the Dianetics became Scientology and became a religion. That's where I have a big problem with. How did that make a jump from a self-help book into a religion?
Yeah, yeah. Well,
Then,
when that happened, some people who were practicing Dianetics at that time thought the exact same thing you were thinking and refused to go along with the change.
mhm. How about and another thing, like where is the evidence to Scientology talks about everybody's a thetan, and we're trillions of years old, and we're going to live trillions of more years. Uh, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where Hubbard came up with that idea. Where was the evidence that that actually is true? How did he come up with the Xenu story? Scientology now admits that that is a true story. That actually is part of OT3. I mean, how did he come up with that? I mean, it's a little bit dicey, a little bit dubious to think that it actually, that's that. I mean, where would he have come up with that information? People say, well, he did research. Where? Where did he do research? Where is this? Where are the notes? Where are the scientific testing that's been done on it? Where is the other scientists that have done the tests on it? To me, it just sounds like a story, and so I'm not sure where that comes from or why people would believe in the body is our body is just a vehicle for a thetan. Where did that come from? And why would people believe that?
Yeah. Well, what's interesting is that when because there are some Scientologists who don't really think critically thinking, in a critical thinking way, and they're sort of either born into the religion or something like that, and they've just gotten caught up in it.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like those sort of people don't really think that scientifically and don't really know how Hubbard came up with these things, and they're sort of just going off faith and trust. And it very much is similar to sort of the other religions with those sort of people. But I remember when I was studying a lot of the textbooks, when I first got into this, and because when I first got into Scientology, it was like first getting into the alternative world of anything alternative health or alternative history or whatever. So when I first went to study it, I was thinking a lot of similar things where I'll be reading it and I'll be like, well, Hubbard says this about an engram during childbirth, or he says this about being able to move objects with a thought or something like that. And I'll just be thinking, okay, well, I'm reading it, but I don't know if I can really get anything out of this because I think I need to see evidence to believe it. And so studying his stuff was a bit difficult. But then as the years went on and I looked at a lot of other different things and heard of accounts of people getting abducted by UFOs and actually I've seen someone now in person move an object using their mind. They moved a spoon. And
How did it move? How did the spoon move?
Well,
did the spoon just move, or did it actually move?
Well, it's on the Kinks YouTube channel, and it's an interview with a mentalist. And what we did is we put the spoon on top of the cup, like this, like a mug like this.
Why? Why would he have to put it on top of a cup? See, that's what I'm talking about, critical thinking. You have to think to yourself, why did he have to put it on top of a cup? Why couldn't he just make it move? Why did it have to have a special...
Yeah, well, no. This is for filming purposes. So because it was between the two of us, and we wanted to have it sitting up so you could see, right? And I looked and I was watching him. I was pretty critical, and I've watched the footage over and over again. And here's the cup, and he puts his hands like this, and he starts building up some sort of some sort of energy field because they have some sort of special ability that we don't have. And then he goes like this, and then the spoon lifted up and then fell down, and I didn't see him touch it or anything, and so I was pretty impressed by that. So yeah.
It couldn't have been a point. It couldn't have been that he blew on it and dropped it into the cup.
No, I didn't see that he was blowing. I didn't see any strings, and yeah. I mean, look, like he could look. I'm not saying it. I mean, it could have been a trick, but I looked and I was pretty serious about watching him because, I was only gonna on the King TV show. I was only gonna show it, if it was legit. I didn't want a magician sitting next to me, and when I spoke to the guy to do the interview with him, the agreement was that I'd found out that he can actually do these and there wasn't going to be any trickery. So I was pretty, looking out for it because I wouldn't have shown it. Like if I want to see a magician show, I'll see a magician show. But this was supposed to be seeing someone move something with their mind. And
right.
And he actually...
Well, was it his spoon or did you?
No, I supplied the spoon. And he actually did it, and he's got some videos I saw on his Facebook page where he puts like a little block of wood on a table and he moves it. So it was good for me to see.
What's his name?
His name's Jason D. Varga. Just look it up, Jason D. Varga, and he's a pretty successful Australian mentalist. He got recommended by Uri Geller. As a pretty interesting, yeah. Well, I know you don't like Uri Geller.
How much that weighs?
Yeah,
Uri Geller.
Well, in the spoon bending.
But anyway, getting back, we're getting a little bit off track here.
Good point. That's a good point. Yeah.
About Scientology.
Well, hold on. I was saying something about.
Perfectly honest, and I don't begrudge anybody for believing what they believe in. They can believe in whatever they want. What bothers me about any religion really is the amount of money that's being spent and is being taken off people. I'm in Colombia right now, and I see some very, very poor people, And then I look at the churches, and they are just glittered with expensive paintings, expensive culture sculptures, uh,
And they're
and the
empty.
people are dirt poor. It's horrible. It's a horrible, horrible situation. The amount of money that religion collects in and do not pay any taxes, and the people are just, the lack of a better term, are just like convinced that all these things are true. And to me, it's it's wrong. People shouldn't be duped like that. If they do, if there is a if there is if the religion is a true religion, it should be helping people, not stealing from people. And now that turns right around now to Scientology. I mean, the Church of Scientology owns a lot of real estate, and it has a great deal of money. Uh, and there are people that are doing these courses for, I don't know how much, but I know they're expensive. They're
Yeah,
expensive
yeah,
courses.
Yeah.
As you go up the bridge, the courses get more and more expensive. And if the purpose of Scientology is to clear the planet and to make everybody as able as they can, shouldn't this stuff be free?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And that is the major point. Just yesterday, I put in a resume for teaching with his English school, and they have some really bizarre names for their English schools here. They're as American as they can in the sound. This one is called Wall Street English. Has nothing to do with it has nothing to do with business. It's just like Wall Street just sounds very English, I guess,
Yeah.
or very American.
They do that in
And
Bali.
yeah, and I have like I got a journalism degree. I got an English degree. I got a teacher's degree. Uh, I know my way around the English language, and they said, well, you need a certain certificate to teach here. I said, oh, okay. Well, what certificate is that? And they said, well, it costs 180,000 Colombian pesos. Now that's not very much money, but to me, it's like, wait a minute, I want to teach at your school, and I have to do a course. I said, no, this just sounds a little bit too dicey.
Yeah, it does.
And it turned out that's what it was. It was a scam. It was like they would get teachers in, they would get them to do this course, and then say, sorry, there's no job available for you. It was a scam.
Hey, Paul,
And
Paul, sorry, I'm just hearing a bit of feedback, Paul. Can you how can we change that
let me
feedback?
turn down my volume. How's that?
Yeah, that's better.
Is that okay?
Oh,
Okay.
nah, a little bit quieter. Can you
So
make it a little bit quieter than that?
I can turn it right down. There you go. How's that?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just go from what you were saying.
Okay. So yeah, I just found that, okay, they wanted money for their course, and so they weren't offering a job at all. It was a money making scheme. Um, so I find that with religion too. I mean, if religion is there to help mankind, it shouldn't be making money. I mean, the Vatican. Uh, God help the Roman Catholics to to have that much faith that this man, the Pope, is like in concert with God. It just seems so wrong to have so many poor people and these churches with so much money. It just is totally wrong. And again, with Scientology, I find that believe what you want to believe. Believe in Zeno. Believe in the flying spaghetti monster. I don't care, but don't go duping people. Don't go taking money away from people. This goes the same with psychics. These psychics, like Sylvia Brown, she was very famous in the United States. She charged $700 a minute for an online counseling. $700 a minute. That sum is unbelievable for
That's more.
someone
That's
who,
even more than Scientology.
well, totally more. It's She charged $700 a minute for private counseling. And the whole idea was that you would put $700 in how many minutes do you want? Do you want 10 minutes? Well, I guess that's $7,000. So you put $7,000 in Sylvia Brown's PayPal account, and then she phones you and talks to you for 7 minutes and tells you either what you want to hear or things that are going to happen to you that can't be proved anyway. And she does this cold reading for 10 minutes. Uh, Things like that are, for me, are totally wrong. And I hate to say that these people are gullible because I don't think they are. I mean, I know there are probably a lot of intelligent people in Scientology. Paul Haggis from Canada, by the way, a great producer, a great director, an intelligent man, was in Scientology for a number of years.
Now, he's the
I know.
man that directed Going Clear, was it?
Man, sorry, I didn't hear
Did
you.
did was he the man who produced Going Clear or the documentary
Mm,
about Scientology?
No, no, Paul Haggis.
He was on Going
Got
Clear.
to go IMDb on him, but he he's won an Academy Award for one of his movies. What movie it was right now escapes my mind.
Yeah,
I can't think of it now. But he's a Hollywood bigwig,
yeah.
and his idea was to just what happened with him was he got out of Scientology because of Scientology's backing uh, of not allowing gay marriages in California. I think that was proposition whatever number they had on the ballot, and Scientology was did not want that to be legal for gay marriages to be legal in California, and Paul Haggis spoke out against it, and he was immediately declared a suppressive person by the church and just told to leave, or he left, or something like that. Anyway, he wasn't going to speak out about it, but they started their campaign of harassment, and he started speaking out about with the church afterwards. I think he sort of left about the same time as Leah Remini and that's that group.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. So to summarize, basically, what I have against Scientology is not so much the religion. I find it bizarre that there would be a religion developed in this day and age. But there you go. Uh, but my main thing about it is the amount of money that these organizations haul in, and they're not putting anything back to the community. They're not. Well, if they are, they're not certainly not to the degree that they're taking in. They may put in a certain amount to doing their touch assist at a fire or something like that. But I don't think it's an amount that actually certainly doesn't go anywhere near what they're actually taking what they're actually taking in. Uh, Canada, actually, Scientology in Canada was found guilty in 1990 for I think it was 1990 for breach of public trust. It was they had I'm not sure what it was. It was some sort of they had some of the Scientologists get government jobs, and they were in photocopying government documents and that sort of thing. Basically, they were trying to whitewash the Scientology religion. Anything that was negative, any negative press, they were trying to sort of
Squash
quell it
it.
down.
Yeah.
Squash it down, yes, exactly. So, yeah, they were found guilty of breach of public trust, and I think five Scientologists went to prison, and the church itself was fined a hefty amount, and apparently it never did make its way back. The Church of Scientology in Toronto, from what I heard, and I have no evidence to back this up, I heard is being basically kept afloat by the Buffalo org, which is just a short distance away. I don't know. I do know that though that the building was in total disrepair before it was closed down about 4 years ago. And the whole idea is to build an ideal org there. I mean, they have photographs and everything online. If you go to the Toronto Scientology website, they have a picture of a building that looks incredible. But you actually look at the building itself, and the windows are broken, and it's only like the first or second floor that they use. It's a 12-story building, so
Big.
it's a beautiful. It was a beautiful building in its day, but it's in total disrepair now. And I think Scientology now is working out of a small office in downtown Toronto somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, I agree with what you're saying, because that's why I'm an independent Scientologist, because the money thing is definitely the biggest issue with the church. Like, if I got in control of it, and I'm sure if a lot of other people got in control of it, the first thing that they would do is just lower prices, because it's basically unaffordable for people to go up the bridge unless you're a Tom Cruise or a local, big shot city businessman. So
Yes.
that's a big problem, and it's very similar. It's funny how it's followed a very similar path to other religions, in that they've got these really nice looking large buildings that are quite quiet and empty, because there's
Hmm.
in Melbourne there's a lot of classic great looking churches that are big and sort of empty, and it's funny seeing the similarities of how Scientology's evolved into being like the other religions, and especially
Yeah.
the whole sinning point of view, because in Scientology a sin's called an overt. And it's really interesting to see, because the other religions, obviously focus on sinning, and a lot of the members are controlled and scared to sin. And Scientology's gone down the same path as of people being scared to commit an overt and scared to look up things on the internet about Scientology, and they're scared to avoid taxes, or they're just scared of the church all the time because of this whole overt and sin thing. It's interesting.
Mhm. Yeah. That's you're saying that. I was just thinking that as you were saying that, I was thinking about the Catholic Church in Canada on the East Coast where I'm from. The Catholic Church had so much power that during the 1970s, when the abuse scandals first started to surface, a policeman was a sergeant in the local police department in a city called St. John's, which is on the east coast of Canada. You can't go any further east without hitting Ireland. Um, he took a lot of police reports from many of the orphan boys that were at the Mount Cashel orphanage, and the captain of the police department, after a few days later, talked to the sergeant and told him, I want you to delete everything that has to do with sexual abuse. Physical abuse is okay. Sexual abuse, cross all that out. Because the Catholic Church had so much power
Yeah.
that they actually controlled the police department. It was incredible, and it wasn't until another 20 years or so that the actual stories actually got out. But it's too bad. Have you ever been in the Church of Scientology, or did you take it
Yeah.
up as?
Yeah, I only
Why did
left
you
the church
leave?
about 7 or 8 months ago. Well, how I left was I I'd been involved with it for about 5 or 6 years, and things just weren't quite making sense. Like, there's a Scientology word called outpoint, where you see things that are not quite right, and like, I think if you do Scientology for 1 year in the church, you don't have enough experience to understand what's sort of going on. But after about 5 years, you start seeing things that don't make sense, and you start going, there's something not right about this organization, the way it's functioning and stuff. And that's when I started to speak to a friend who's been around Scientology since the 80s and started, picking his brain, asking more questions. And then the more I asked, the more questions I had. And then there was a point where I decided, where I decided to actually start properly looking into Scientology on the internet, because I was like, I want to find out more. And what did it for me was that I watched a video by an independent Scientologist saying how the church has had changes to their books, and this is a really bad thing to do in Scientology. So this person was exposing the changes.
Right. You're manipulating the source, who is Ron Hubbard.
Yeah, exactly. So when I actually listened to them, and I realized I agreed. I was like, yeah, I can see how there's these changes and there's something wrong. So then after that, I looked more into it and I found out how the whole church isn't what you think it is when you're involved in it, because when you're in the church, nobody talks about bad things because it's called bad PR. It's something negative. So what happens is that when you're involved, you just hear positive, nice things like, "Oh, how's the weather?" and "How is your auditing wins?" And so it's actually a really bad thing, because you can go along and not hear information that you need to hear, And it's kind of like the Catholic Church with the pedophile thing, in that, because it's a religion and the people who are interested in it want to protect their religion, they don't call out crimes when they're happening. So and that really creates a beast, because the Catholic Church, for example, can go along, and if they're not getting called out and the local policeman's protecting them or whatever, they can just turn into this vicious organization. And so the Church of Scientology is similar in that it can go along, and if people are keeping their mouth shut trying to protect it, it can just get away with doing all these really bad things, and it snowballs and it ends up becoming an organization that's just corrupt. Like a real important thing is having that transparency, and that you can't sweep things under the rug with any organization, because it ends up just turning into a beast.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the problem. There's a folk singer in Canada. His name is Bruce Colbourne. No relation. Name is spelled differently. He had a song back during the Nicaraguan crisis, Nicaraguan and the Sandinistas in Central America. The song was called "The Trouble with Normal Is That It Always Gets Worse." And that seems to be a going concern with Scientology in that, and with any sort of religion, is that as time goes by, things that are normal changes. And I think it's, if you're surrounding yourself with, for instance, if you're surrounding yourself with, I don't know, devil worshippers or Satanists or something like that, then Satanism becomes normal. If you're surrounding yourself with
mafia and criminals,
then Scientology becomes normal. So normal is sort of like a very subjective term.
whatever
Because
you're used to.
what's normal for one person is certainly not normal for someone else. So it changes all the time.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what's kind of going on with the church, because people who are listening to this, they haven't been involved with the church. When you're involved with it, there's very heavy pressure to donate a lot of money. And I know for someone who's not a believer, who's not into Scientology, you might think it's strange to have someone ask you for 20 grand. But when you're involved with the church, you get fed a lot of information, and you get really encouraged, and you get really pressured, and people can just do things like sign over 30 grand and that sort of stuff in donations. And so it becomes, and look, there's nothing wrong with helping out your church, but if you're super rich, 20 grand's fine. But if you're not, you got all this credit card debt and that sort of stuff, 20 grand can really screw you up and end up sending you bankrupt. But
Yes.
but what's the thing is, when you're in the church, it's like you get used to being asked for large amounts of money, and the staff members get used to asking people for large amounts of money, and they don't even bat an eye. They're just like, "Oh, here, they'll ask for $1,000 or $20,000," and it's just like, and so David Miscavige can release a new course and say, "This course here is getting released. It's going to cost $5,000," and instead of being like, "Why the hell is this course $5,000?" and thinking, it should be able to be run for $1,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
People just accept it, and it's just and the staff members, especially the Sea Org ones that are really dedicated, they have this thing where they have no problem with asking people for a lot of money. It's just they have no issue with it. It's just like totally fine. And I didn't like it when I was volunteering
It
there.
becomes normal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because when I was volunteering there, I would ask someone for a donation because I'd want to help out the church. But there's a point where it's just like, clearly the person can't afford it. Clearly it's too much you're asking for. And I noticed that there's this attitude that that the staff members have almost no problem with just absolutely milking the public
Mhm.
out of as much money as they can. It's definitely an attitude in the church that needs to get changed. They need to actually realize how much money they're asking for. They're not talking to Tom Cruise when they're talking to the average church member.
No, exactly. Yeah, the whole money issue is like you said. Yeah, it becomes normal after a while that these people just open their checkbook or just take out their credit card and just add more and more money to the coffers of Scientology. Do you think David Miscavige actually believes in the workings of L. Ron Hubbard? Do you think he
Uh,
actually does, or has he sort of has he opened up the door and realized that, like, hey, this is a global scam and I can make a lot of money too?
that's a really good question. That's a good question that a lot of people ask a lot. Um, that's I don't know. All I have to say is that's a good question. He is. I do think he's a sociopath, so I think he's negative and he's crazy. And I think that I don't know. I've heard some wild things about him, like as in someone will be asking. He'll make someone write the definition of what an FN is, which is totally against what Hubbard was saying. And he
Hmm.
would just say, and I heard that he said to someone, just make it up, make up the definition of an FN. And so, I mean,
Sorry,
that's
an
just
FN? What is an FN?
oh, it's a reaction on the e-meter. It's a really really common thing. It's a really big thing in Scientology. So if
What happened? What does a needle do?
it floats up and back. I don't know
Okay.
the perfect
Oh, a
definition.
floating needle, an
Yeah,
FN,
yeah, FN
floating.
floating. No, yeah.
Okay, okay.
So
Okay.
so
Yeah, that's another thing I wanted to talk about. The e-meter. I mean, it's just a galvanometer, right? It's just like all it does is just it's a biofeedback, right? It's like electricity goes in through one hand, goes through your body, and comes out and goes into the other one.
yeah,
So
hold on. Yeah,
if your palms sweat a little bit, or if you grip a little bit tighter, then more electricity can pass through, right?
yeah, hold on. I just want to say the thing about David Miscavige though. So what him just telling people to make up the definition of an FN. I mean, that's the worst thing you could ever do in Scientology. Like that's like worse than raping a kid or something. Like that's just really bad. And because it's worldwide, it's changing the religion across the whole world. Um, so I just think he's crazy. So I think that it's similar to asking a homeless person, who's a bit crazy on the side of the street, do you actually believe in something? And because they might one day be like, yeah, I believe, and the next day they're like, and they're too crazy to almost have a proper belief and opinion. So that's kind of what I think of him. I think that maybe some days, yeah, he totally is like, yeah, into it. Then other days when he gets angry, he just changes his mind and is just like attacks things. But about the e-meter, I've definitely I found that really interesting when I first heard that theory that the only reason that the meter is reacting is because the person's changing the grip on the cans, or they're sweating, and I don't know too much about it if that is the case, but I do know that yeah, when a thought is getting dealt with in session that has stress in it, then it affects the needle. So whatever is causing it, I don't think it matters too much, but it does help locate areas of
Hmm.
stress which needs to get addressed in the therapy.
I did a stress test. I did a stress test in Toronto. Basically because not that I believed, I just wanted to investigate the e-meter, and I did do that. I held the cans, and if I squeezed hard, the needle jumped over,
Yeah.
and if I let go, it went back. So what I did, I took the cans and just laid them in my hands without any sort of grip. And the guy said, "No, no, you have to grip them." And I said, "Why?" He says, "Well, that's the way it's done." I said, "Well, they're touching my hands. Why does it matter if my thumbs go over the top? It doesn't. It should not matter. The cans are in my hand." And he stopped. He stopped. He said, "No, you're obviously
A skeptic or something.
trying to make fun or whatever." And he ended the session right there because I didn't hold the cans right. So basically, what I was doing was, okay, here's an example. Pretend this is a can. Instead of gripping it like this, I just held it in my hand like that. I
Yeah.
said, "Well, it's still touching."
Yeah.
I said, "There's still electricity going through. You can see it on a needle." And he said, "No, no, you have to grip it." I said, "Well, that's what I said. Well, why? Why do you need a grip?" And I said, "The only reason I can see, I said, the only reason why I can interpret a grip is that it's as I move my hands, as my muscle contract, that it's going to affect the needle."
Yeah.
So again, yeah, like I said, he told me to get lost. I'm on a private property. I said, "No, you're on a sidewalk." And, anyway, he threatened to call the police and blah
Really?
blah blah. I said, "Well, no, this is too silly." So I left. But yeah, I just found that. What was this? There was actually ABC in Australia. There was actually a really good reporter that was doing that time when one of your MPs, I think his name was Xenophon.
Yeah, Xenophon, yeah.
Yeah, was wanted to do wanted. I'm not sure where that went. I think just it certainly got it got it got paid under the cover or something. But anyway, while he was doing that, was there was an ABC journalist doing a story who actually went to California, and it was after the BBC story with that bald-headed guy. I forget his name. That reporter
Yeah, I know who you mean, yeah.
that did the shouting with Tommy
Yeah.
Davis. "No, Tommy, you were not there at the
Yeah.
beginning of that.
Yeah.
You." And they were just
Yeah.
shouting at each other insanely. And to me, that seemed a little bit just to off a little bit. That seemed a little bit staged. I don't know
Oh,
why.
really?
It just seemed a little bit staged.
Well,
Anyway, let me
apparently,
get
hold
back.
on, hold on. Apparently, Tommy was provoking the guy, like he was being a little clever and shifty and wanting to annoy him. Apparently, David Miscavige wanted to get a reaction from him where he would yell a lot so that he would discredit himself in the media, so he came across as a nut job.
Oh, okay. Well, to me, it sounded like, yeah, I don't know. It just sounded a little bit too produced. Um, but anyway, this your reporter from ABC and from Australia did a piece on and he interviewed Tommy Davis, and he actually called Tommy Davis, said like, "You just seemed a little bit, Jekyll and Hyde. You seem really, really nice now." But I said, and he said, "But in that documentary, you really came across as a bit very creepy." And but Tommy Davis was all very nice and very sweet and everything like that. And they were talking about the e-meter. And Tommy Davis said that thought has mass. And the reporter said, "Thought has what? Thought has mass?" And Tommy Davis said, "Yes." He said, "Well, has that been proven? That's only a theory." And Tommy Davis said, "So?" Which I thought was a great answer. And it's true. I mean, uh, where did Hubbard come up with the idea that thought actually has mass? Uh, Thought is, as far as I know, thought is just a firing of synapses across your brain, an electrical sort of firings. To say that actually has mass, I'm not sure where that comes from.
I think it
What
comes from the, I think it comes from the E meter, the theory of the E meter, in that you've got an electrical flow going through you, and then the
hmm
thought comes in, and the heaviness of the thought disrupts and affects the flow,
Okay.
and then it registers on the meter. Um, so yeah, but do you know what's interesting as well? You'll find this interesting. For people who have problems with their hands, there's actually pads that they can strap to their wrists, and they can use the e-meter with these pads that are on their wrist. So that would be a bit more of a way of working out whether or not it is the squeezing of the hands or not.
Oh, really? Have you seen those used?
Yeah, yeah. Apparently they prefer you to use the cans though, because it, like, when your hand wraps around it all the way, it's something to do with you get a better read on the meter. But when it's the pads on the wrist, it's a bit harder. But they definitely make them for people who have problems with their hands. Because some people have, you know, how some people have
Arthritis or something like that.
yeah, some people have a problem as well. Like, either they don't have any hands or something. But some people have a problem where they shake their hand all the time, like they might have some sort of illness, right?
Parkinson's disease
So
or something like that. Yeah.
yeah, so they would use the pad in that situation, and yeah, it goes on the wrist or the forearms or something.
Right. Well, that's pretty interesting. Yeah, it's an interesting device, and to me, it sort of brings in that whole. It's sort of a brings whole Scientology into a full circle in that. Well, here it must be right. Here's something very electrical, very high tech being used. So it must be good. It's like the religion of the 21st century because they're actually using something electronic. Uh, to me, I remember my father, who was sort of an amateur electrician, electronics engineer. No, he wouldn't really just love doing it. He had one of those little meter things that you'd see if there's, I forget what they're called. You
Galvanometer,
just
galvanizer,
yeah,
yeah,
exactly. Those two little
electrodes,
alligator
yeah.
things you stick on either end to make sure that there's a current going through. And I remember playing with that when I was a kid. I would hold on to it and I would squeeze really tight, and I would actually get a read on that meter. And I used to play a game with myself, see how high I could make that number go by squeezing it as hard as I can. And I noticed if I kept it in my palms and my palms got wet, the reading would actually get higher. And when I first heard about the e-meter and seeing it being used, the first thing I thought about was like when I was a kid with my father's galvanometer or whatever it's called, holding on to those alligator clips and playing with it and trying to get that number as high as I can. So I didn't really see much difference between that and the toy that I was what my father had. So to say that that is reading thought, to me, that's again, I'm sorry, I find that a little bit dubious that actually say it's reading thought. Now, if it was reading the fact that, if, for instance, if it was being used to as a biofeedback mechanism. In other words, whatever reaction you're having to, like, you just broke up with your girlfriend, if that's making your hand sweat or it's making you grip the thing tighter, that means you're a little bit stressed. So, okay, you talk about it more, and then you start relaxing a little bit, and you're relaxing, and it's not bothering you so much because you're talking about it. So your grip is going down. So the needle will go down as well. If Scientology fessed up and said that's exactly what it's doing, why isn't that good? Why doesn't that make sense? To me, that would make better sense. Using the e-meter, not so much that it's measuring thought, but it's actually really measuring stress. And how it's measuring stress is by the sweat in your hands and your grip. And by talking about a problem, your stress level will go down, and of course your grip on those little cans would go down as well. To me, that would make a lot more sense, and it would probably be a lot easier, more of a pill to swallow than saying that stress has mass, which hasn't been proven and is just a theory.
Yeah, well, I
Uh,
think these would make really good experiments for like a university to do, or a science group to dive into and look into the science of the e-meter and that sort of stuff.
mhm. I think it's been done actually. There was actually someone who did their PhD. I'd have to look it up. I forget their name, but there's a university in on the east coast of United States called William and Mary, and someone did their PhD in sociology, I think, on the IQ levels of someone who actually did Dianetics and people who did not. Now, the problem with that, the whole thing for me is that, okay, he got a test group that did Dianetics and tested their IQ before they started and then after they did Dianetics courses. And there was no increase in IQ level. The problem I have with that is the fact that someone who's being paid or asked to do this for a PhD paper isn't doing Scientology for the right reasons. So the test group is sort
Yeah,
of skewed either way. It didn't really. I skimmed over the paper and it said, okay, there was no actual increase in IQ level between those who did not do Scientology and those who did do Scientology. Like I said, my problem with that whole test was that, okay, the people that you had to do Scientology were not doing it for the reasons that most Scientologists do it for. These people are doing the Scientology for a PhD paper, which, it's to me, you need some sort of double-blind test. Nobody knows who's doing the sign. I don't know how you would do that. It would be probably impossible, because someone who's doing Scientology certainly isn't going to, allow themselves to be a research rat and for someone who's doing their PhD in sociology.
yeah. Well, when it comes to working out these things like spoon bending or psychic stuff or religion things, it's a realm that to do scientific tests, it's harder than testing like a garage door or a Boeing 747. They're a lot more physical universe and a lot more easier to test for. So it's hard to get good scientific tests of these unusual things, you know?
Yeah, that's why I'm very skeptic of these psychics that say they can move spoons, and yet the spoon has to be put on a top of a cup. Why can't he just move the spoon if it's on the table by itself?
Well, in that
Why
situation, it was for the
why
camera, so
can't
it sit up high for the camera.
see? I want to test that guy and take that spoon and put it under some sort of like a cookie jar or some sort of clear plastic container, so no air can get at it, nobody can touch it, no wires. So it's like under
Yeah,
one of those. I don't know. My mother used to have a cake cover
yeah, yeah,
that cover the cake. Put the spoon there, put that cover over it. Now, Ben, now make it move.
yeah,
If you can make it move there, I'd probably be more willing to go, that's pretty interesting.
yeah.
But some guy who takes a spoon and puts it on a cup and puts his hand near it and goes like this, I don't know. I'm a little bit skeptic of that. I'd have to see it for myself.
Yeah.
But you can understand. I suggest I challenge you to talk to that mentalist again and ask him to do that test again and put it under some sort of clear plastic container and see if he can do it there. If he can't, if he refuses, then I think you have to ask why is he refusing. If he can, and if he says, "Hey, no problem, I can do it," then, gee, maybe you might have something going there. I don't know.
Yeah,
But I just
yeah,
find it very, very, very bizarre that he'd want to, take the spoon, put it on a cup, put his hands over it, and like get as close to it as he can. And to me, it sounds like all he has to do is just go, and the spoon is going to move.
Yeah, well, I
It's like
mean, he would say you don't understand how he does it, and he would say he needs to have his hand somehow near it because he pushes some sort of energy field out of his fingers, and I don't know, you
uh,
know.
yeah, that's see. No, I mean, there's no, that to me, that's a cop out. If you can move something, you can move it. I mean, you don't have to. I don't know how it's done. I don't profess to be an expert in parapsychology or anything like that. But to me, it just seems like the hands are put in front of the spoon for a little bit more reason than energy. To me, it seems like there's a little bit more afoot than that.
Yeah, well,
And what was the reason for wanting it on a cup?
oh, for the camera point of view, so the camera can see it clearer. It was just sitting up because we had some things on the desk, so it was just the cup was between us, so we laid it on across the cup.
Whose suggestion was it to put it on a coffee cup?
Well, here's the thing. See, because you say that he suggested, but he said he goes put it in the cup, and so I went and I laid it across the cup, and he goes, oh, across the cup. He goes, okay, well we'll try that, and so that was what was interesting because he actually wanted me to put it in the cup, and he was gonna like sitting inside it, you know.
Yes, I
Yeah, yeah.
understand. Yeah.
Anyway, so that I liked that the fact that he wanted it actually in the cup, and I didn't do that. I wasn't trying to. I just thought he meant across the top of the thing or something. But anyway, but that
I
tested him. Um, anyway, but I mean, we can go off topic on this, but I can tell you a little story that I've heard, but it's just a story, but you'll find it really interesting, and it's about something called remote viewing. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yes, 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 yes. So it was a big thing back in the 50s. It was basically it was during the Cold War when the CIA and the KGB were at each other's throats, and they were trying everything.
Yeah,
There were tests on LSD, whether LSD was actually just a psychedelic drug, or did it actually have some sort of mind control powers? And yes, they did everything. They tested psychics. They tested everything. There wasn't a thing the CIA didn't try to get one up over on the KGB. So yeah, the remote viewing thing is a pretty interesting thing.
yeah,
Uh,
and I heard they tested remote viewing, and they actually proved with scientific tests and Stanford Research Institute because a guy called Ingo Swann was involved with it, and he was a Scientologist, and so anyway, it's kind of interesting. But yeah, apparently they proved that with tests that yeah, you can do things like remote viewing, which is, if people don't know what that is, it's where you can basically, I'm not where you are, Paul, right now, and I can't see the whole room, but basically, um, imagine if I could actually describe what's in the whole room from where I am in Australia, and that's what these psychics apparently can do. Yeah, they can do something called remote viewing where they can see something from a huge distance, but their eyes actually aren't there.
right, right, right. Yes, it's not so much out of body experience, but it's basically taking your mind and put it in another location so your mind's eye can see. I think
Yeah,
that's
it's
basically
yeah,
what it
it's
is.
yeah. I don't know because it's fun. It's interesting hearing them try and describe how they do it because maybe they have different ways of going about it, but I don't even think they know how they do it because it's such an area of knowledge that we just don't know about all these unusual things. This is my theory on it, and it's a bit out there, but it's something to do with them tapping into some sort of universal field matrix or something like that, or God or something, and they get the information from that. They download it. I remember I spoke to a psychic once, and she told me something about me that she shouldn't have known, but she goes, I got a download. She described it as a download of information.
Mm.
Yeah.
She's using computer talk, sort of bringing psychics into the 21st century. Yeah, I'd have to. I'm again. Remote viewing, how is it being used now, or is it just something of the past? To me, it's like, yeah, people say the CIA and the KGB used to do it. Well, why aren't they doing it now? Well, maybe it's because they hit rock bottom on the whole idea. I don't know. I don't have any, to use the Scientology word, I don't have any data on that, so I can't say yes or no about that. I've I
I like that use of the
I
Scientology
don't
word
know anything
data.
about
It's
that
funny.
remote viewing. Um, crop circles. Oh, crop circles. I was going to talk to you about crop circles too. There's a guy that talked about crop circles, and he said it's like UFO graffiti. So you got these aliens coming, hundreds of thousands of light years away to put graffiti on our cornfields.
Yeah.
And nobody actually knows what they mean or anything like that. But and nobody has any evidence that here nor there or what the cause there, except for someone who put someone actually made a crop circle with a piece of wood and actually bent the wheat down. But I don't know. I just I found that really funny that there were alien graffiti on our crop fields. I thought that was that's probably the best definition I ever heard of crop fields.
Yeah. The
Have you ever heard of the latest thing, especially since digital photography came into being? Orbs being photographs and orbs and rods. Have you ever heard of
Yeah, I've
that?
heard about stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah. It's of course you know what orbs are. Orbs are just pieces of dust that are close to or too close to the lens. And rods, those little things that they see flying across the screen, is that the is an insect that just going too fast for the camera to keep up. This was about 10 years ago. The cameras that they have now are actually a lot faster, and lo and behold, people aren't getting any rods on their video anymore. Back about 10, like I said, about 10 years ago, where the shutter speed was a little bit slower, everybody was getting these videos of rods forming in their video. Now it seemed to have gone away. Uh, so yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm saying there's always a logical explanation to all this stuff. Occam's razor. I'm a big fan of that idea that there's the simplest solution is usually the correct one. And I use that. You talk about L. Ron Hubbard. I mean, did this man actually uh, find out the troubles for all mankind and has come up with this great way of treating all man's ills that he will become able and become a superpower? Or was he a con artist, snake oil salesman who actually came up with a fast way to make a quick buck?
Yeah.
Uh,
I think the whole idea that Hubbard was bad and Scientology is bad is a lot more easier to believe than the magical, amazing thing that I actually think it is. Um, just the same as, let's say, 9/11, for example. Before I looked into 9/11, I would have said it's a lot easier to believe that it was just terrorists. But then I looked
mhm.
into it, and I really looked into it, and I I believe that, yeah, there was some corrupt elements in the government that caused it, and so it's,
Mhm.
it's
Well,
just,
the 9/11, I have to say, I don't know. I don't have any. Again, I don't have any data on that. But all I have is what the commissions came out with and what I see. But I am not. I have to admit, I am not 100% convinced that Osama bin Laden was actually in charge of it all. Some goat herder in Afghanistan. I don't know. I just find that a little bit hard. I think there was more people involved than him. I do believe that I do not think it was an inside job. However, I do think that the United States could have done a lot more to prevent it. One of the things they could have done is keep their asses out of the Middle East. They're over there uh, uh, sticking their nose in the businesses of other people that they shouldn't be doing. Afghanistan, during the Afghan war with Russia, the CIA poured a lot of money into an organization called the Mujahideen. And they were basically a very Muslim fundamentalist group. And of course, it was a great way for the CIA to keep Russia from winning that war, because all they had to do was saying, Russia, those evil atheists, you don't want them in your land of Allah, sorry. And these people were, very, 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 very ultra conservative, ultra fundamentalists. And so the CIA were funding them with a lot of weapons and a lot of training. And that is one of the main reasons why the Soviet Union, at the end of it, went broke, because they just could not keep that war going. So they slowly pulled out. So finally, Afghanistan was Soviet free. And so what happened then? The CIA said, bye. And so you had this Mujahideen, led by many people, including a young man by the name of Osama bin Laden, who was getting all this fundamentalist, Allah is great, Islam is the religion for mankind for the future, all this speak. All of a sudden, this was cut off. The money was cut off. The fervor was cut off, everything. And so they're left with nothing. So you have these extremely militant Muslims trained expertly by the CIA in weaponry, in bomb making, in many other things, left with nothing. So they're for lack of a better term, their sugar daddy, the United States, left. And so what happens? They got mad. They got really mad. The Mujahideen ended up hating the United States because they no longer were funding them. Because the United States is only going to fund someone if it's going to be for their interests. So that is where the whole start of the Muslim fundamentalists came from, was basically the CIA muddling around in Central Asia, or Middle East, I should say, where it don't belong. In fact, after 9/11 happened, the CIA put out a report and labeled it as blowback.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. They call it blowback when this happens.
Yeah, blowback is actually a plumber's term. If you force water into a pipe, and you force too much water in a pipe, the whole idea is to force any sort of blockage out the other end. But if that blockage will not move, the water that you're forcing in will blow back into your face. So that is the reason why the CIA come up with the term blowback, and that's exactly what it is. They're over there forcing their power. They want power over there because it's oil. It's the land of oil. It's the land of milk and honey. And so when these people push back, it's like a plumber pouring water into a pipe. Eventually, it's going to push back, and this is what happened. These fundamentalists did push back. So did what were there controlled demolitions as the buildings fell? Were the people that were on that flight that morning, were they actually all whisked away and that plane was just taken and remotely controlled, thrown into those buildings? I don't see that. I think that's too much. That's too big a story to keep covered. Uh, but I do believe that there's a lot more to it than what we actually are told. I know very well. I mean, the Bin Laden family is quite a rich family, and they were friends with the Bushes. The Bin Ladens and the Bushes go back a number of generations. So I don't know. I just find I I'm skeptical that it was just one man, Osama bin Laden, and 18 terrorists. I think there's a lot more people involved on both sides of the ocean. I don't have any evidence either way, so I can't say for sure. But I think there needs to be a lot more investigation into that. But how do you do that? I don't know. I don't know. Uh, do I think that America actually did that? If they did it, God, the world is a lot more fucked up than we think it is. It really
Yeah,
is.
yeah. Well, I
uh,
know. I mean, we're going down. We're going on so off topic, but I guess I knew that would sort of happen with this sort of conversation because it's just like with Scientology. I don't know. It just seems to be there's so much going on in there that it can any talk about it can just lead off to all these other things. But basically, you are not a fan of the sort of the Church of Scientology and it's the way it treats money, and the actual beliefs sort of in Scientology. Can you turn down the
yeah,
feedback? The
yeah.
actual
Go ahead.
the actual beliefs in Scientology. It sounds like you don't like the idea of people getting sucked into things that could be a scam and things that could just be ripping people off when it's just a simple psychotherapy. You know what I mean?
Hmm. Yeah, I think you can basically sum up my whole excuse me, my whole point of view is that I just don't like seeing people getting hurt. I have a big problem with that, and I hate people who have power dominating over people that don't have power, and that goes for religion. That goes for people who believe in psychics. That goes for anybody who become victims of any sort of scam. And I find the Church of Scientology very much like that. I find the Roman Catholic Church very much like that. I find televangelists. I don't know if Australia has many televangelists, but in Canada and the United States, it's a big money making operation. The whole faith healers on TV, they're like laying their hands on someone and pushing them back and saying their cancer is healed and all that sort of stuff. Faith healers, are they
Oh
very big
yeah, no,
in Australia?
I know about them, but yeah, they're not a big thing
Yeah,
in Australia. We don't have many
yeah,
evangelicals here.
yeah. Okay, well, they're very big in the United States and very big in Canada too. And I just find that such a horrendous thing. One of the bigger ones in the United States is this guy Benny Hinn, Hynn, who's a televangelist, and he's like a multimillionaire. He just wears these really bizarre sort of like almost like the Nehru suit the Beatles used to wear. Uh, and with a little dove on his cover, and he's just such a slick salesman. It's just incredible. I've seen interviews with him, and he doesn't claim any sort of psychic ability, which is wonderful. He says everything that he does comes from the hands of God. God uses him. So it's a great outlet. He doesn't claim any sort of psychic powers. It's God doing all this work. So it's a beautiful thing. It's quite a scam he got going. So yeah, it comes down to the fact that I just do not believe that that these people that are in power should be allowed to hold on to so much money. And but what can I do about it? I can't do anything about it. All I can say is that they're not getting any of my money. I
Yeah.
have enough to give, but
Yeah. Well, what do you say about, because for someone like me, I've got gained a lot of benefit from Scientology, and I I and being involved with the church, I got a lot of benefit and some bad stuff, and then leaving was great because then they got rid of that bad stuff from the church and just the benefit from Scientology. But when I'm trying to imagine from a Scientologist point of view, if they see something by a skeptic or something by you or people like you, something that's attacking Scientology, that they'll kind of get annoyed because they'll go, "Hey, why are you having a go at something that I've gotten a lot of benefit from?" Like that would, it annoys them basically.
hmm. Well, you know something. If you get benefit from it, hey, more power to you. I think it's great. Uh, but like I said, look, you believe in whatever you want to. Believe that that e-meter is actually working. That it's actually measuring the mass of your thought. Fine, do that. It's up to you. I'm not angry at the church. I'm angry at the fact that people are losing a lot of money and are being duped into giving a lot of money. That's where I have a problem with. And to me, that's real. That's something that can be dealt with. And how you can do that is tax them. Churches, as far as I'm concerned, if they're making money, if they're passing around that collection plate every Sunday, they should be paying taxes on that because it's basically, from my point of view, it's magic. It's like, it's not real. It's fake. And if you're going to be duping people every Sunday and not paying any taxes, then that's a double whammy. It's bad that you're collecting money from very poor people who believe, but to not pay taxes is something else. So I don't know. I don't hate Scientology. I don't hate the Catholic Church. I could give a rat's ass, but I do hate people that are getting hurt, and I think that any organization that claims to have the answers shouldn't be collecting in millions and millions of dollars every year on it. If they have the answers, then man, give them to me for free. Let me have it for free. I don't want to do a personality test of like, was it like 100 and something questions, and that can tell me. That's another thing. That personality test. I mean, like I've read through those questions, and they're so like, who has not had said something in the past they wish they never said? Whoever answers, like one of the questions is, have you ever said something that you wish you never said? Who never, whoever says no to that is a sociopath, because I think anybody with a conscience gotta have some sort of like, God, geez, I wish I didn't say that. If anybody says nope, I meant everything I ever said in my life, then that's someone actually that person actually needs Scientology, not the person who says the opposite.
I think David Miscavige might be in that category. I think he doesn't do anything that he ever regrets. He's perfect. He's a perfect being.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? I was going to say, yeah, well, yeah, that's what the Church of Scientology is so interesting, because it's like it's set up like a corporation, like almost like a McDonald's, yet combined to be kind of like a religion and a church, and it's
Hmm.
really interesting because it's just like um how they it's like it preys on people's beliefs to get them to volunteer for the church, and it's quite an interesting. I imagine from an accountant's point of view, if they studied the books of it and looked at it, they would find it very interesting how it's all set up, like a corporation and has copyrights, yet at the same time it's a religion and it's it's a non-profit. So it's interesting.
Yeah. Well, the Catholic Church is not far behind as far as a business goes. I mean, the Vatican has its own police force. So, why religion needs police, I don't know. Isn't God's power enough that they actually got to have a police force with, heavy artillery? That's pretty bizarre. Anyway, Andrew, I have to
Get going.
teach class in the morning.
Yep.
And it is, I don't know what time it is now. I think it's getting on to 8:30 or so here.
Yep. All right. Well, it was good. It was good talking to you, Paul. And I think it's good because I think it's when it comes to these sort of things, when Scientologists having debates with skeptics and that sort of stuff, it's hard to actually have a proper conversation because it's when you're doing a stress test on the street or you see some comment on Facebook or something, there are always these little brief little discussions that don't really get anywhere. So I think it's good that we actually spoke about something and got both sides got to say what they think about the issue.
Right. So are you considered an SP?
Yeah, I would be. Yeah. Especially
You're definitely a squirrel.
yeah, especially interviewing you and allowing you to actually say things on a podcast that are negative towards the church, because the church, if a church member had their own podcast about Scientology, they would say no, you can't allow that SP to talk about corruption within the church. But the thing is, the truth is, you need to let these people speak about these sort of things because the light of truth needs to be shined on the church. Otherwise, it won't correct itself. It can't keep being hidden away.
Definitely. Well, Andrew, you're definitely a Martin Luther of your time.
Yeah. All right. Thanks for speaking to me, Paul.
Okay.
See you
all the
later.
best.
Have a
Take
good
care.
day. Bye.
Bye-bye.
All right. So that is it for the interview with Paul Colbourne. I thought it was a pretty good interview. I enjoyed it. That is also it for the podcast. Now it's time for you to climb back out of the rabbit hole, out of this Scientology world. If you like this adventure, make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Thanks for listening. I've been your host, Andy Nolch, and until next time, take care of yourself and get up that bridge. All right, see ya.